Tottenham just got smarter, and that's bad news for the Premier League. And look, I know people have been saying this for a while now. Spurs are still bottlers. Spurs can never build something. Frank's not the next big thing. Yeah, we've heard it.
Different surroundings, yeah.
But this time, we might actually be wrong. But don't take my word for it. Pay attention, because Thomas Frank at Tottenham isn't a feel-good story. It's a problem for everyone else. Tottenham Hotspur. The name alone doesn't exactly scream dominance. If anything, it's shorthand for failure, for comedy, for collapse. And yet, here we are. Nobody saw it coming. Not even their own fans dared to dream too loudly. For years, they'd been the punchline, the team you prayed to meet in a final, because history told you what would happen next. They'd crumble. This time, they didn't. And for a club like Spurs, that meant everything. So when that final whistle blew in Bilbao, it wasn't just a win.
Tottenham Hotspur are the UEFA Europa League winners.
It was a reset, a shock to the system, a signal that maybe, just maybe, the bottle job label that's haunted them for over a decade might finally be gone. And since their first taste of silverware in years, Spurs have been enjoying every second of it. The parades, the songs, the social media jabs, it's been dying down. But here's where the story takes a turn, because they're not satisfied. Instead of leaning back and basking in the glory, the board is moving like men on a mission. They're not acting like a club happy to simply be back on the podium. They're acting like a club terrified of falling back into irrelevance. That's why behind the smiles, the scarier truth has been unfolding. A plan. Not just any plan. A project to rebuild Tottenham into one of the most ruthless machines in the league. And right at the heart of it all is Thomas Frank, a manager with a vision sharp enough to cut through years of mediocrity. How did Thomas Frank go from Brentford to becoming the man Spurs are betting their future on? The answer is simple. He doesn't just coach to win games. He builds something dangerous, and he does it fast. Modern football doesn't wait. Clubs don't hire managers for long-term promises anymore. They want fireworks the moment you step in. Fail to light the fuse, you're gone. It's the same brutal cycle we've seen at Chelsea, at Bayern, at Real Madrid. Deliver instantly or disappear. That's exactly the chaos Thomas Frank walked into at Spurs. A quad with flashes of brilliance, but no backbone. A team that could look like world beaters one week and then collapse into a mess the next. Most managers would have needed seasons to stabilize that kind of volatility. Frank didn't wait. He flipped the script almost immediately. And here's the surprise. He didn't do it by copying anyone else. He carved out his own blueprint. Compact, relentless, ruthless on the counter. And the shocking part, it works. Not occasionally, consistently. And in case you don't believe me, look no further than the Super Cup final against Luis Enrique's PSG. For 80 straight minutes, Spurs weren't just competing, they were dictating the entire game. Pressing PSG into panic, forcing mistakes, controlling the tempo. For a moment, they looked like the side about to lift the cup, until it slipped away at the very end.
Romero, great leap. Polinia's there! Chevalier onto the bar, but turned in! Mickey van der Ven in Udine! It's for the Super Cup. And Paris Saint-Germain have won it.
That game to me feels like a warning shot. Evidence that under Frank, Spurs aren't merely relevant, they're terrifying. As you can see it in the players themselves, Kudus looks reborn. Bentancur suddenly carries the midfield like it's his kingdom. Even the so-called inconsistent names are producing like seasoned Champions League veterans. The transformation isn't hype, it's visible, and while it might feel reckless to suggest it this early, the signs point in one direction. Frank might actually be that guy. Because here's the truth, he isn't building Spurs to crash the top 6 conversation. He's constructing a squad with the audacity to stare down the giants of England and eventually Europe. They've already shown they can go toe-to-toe with Europe's elite. That much is clear. But here's the real question. How? How did a man who was managing Brentford just a few years ago turn Spurs into a machine so quickly? The answer is in the blueprint. Thomas Frank's system is built on one thing: control. We saw it at Brentford. In just 3 years, he took them from championship outsiders to one of the Premier League's most respected teams. And he did it without a superstar budget. Frank's approach is data-driven, detail-obsessed, and ruthlessly logical. At Brentford, every player knew their role down to the meter. No guesswork, no improvising, no figure-it-out football. And now at Spurs, he finally has the resources to build the system he's always dreamed of. The proof is in the recruitment. Take Savinho, a silky Brazilian with jet acceleration. To most clubs, he's a flair signing. To Frank, he's a trigger in the press. The left winger in a 4-3-3 high block, pinning fullbacks and forcing defensive lines to shift. And the same logic applies everywhere. These aren't vanity buys, they're functional weapons. Pieces designed to suffocate you off the ball and carve you open the moment they win it back. Look at the backline. Mickey van de Ven, recovery pace that makes counterattacks vanish. Christian Romero, first contact defender, stepping into duels before they can escalate. Destiny Udogie, the inverted fullback, creating a midfield 3-2 base when Spurs attack. Pedro Porro, providing width on the right, stretching defenses until they snap. The old Spurs, they tried to outscore chaos with more chaos. Frank's Spurs, they drag you into deep water and hold you there until you can't breathe. And here's the part most people miss. This blueprint isn't finished. The press triggers, the rotations, the tactical layering, it's only the foundation. So if this is what Frank has built in year 1, imagine what happens when he's given 2 or 3. Everything Thomas Frank perfected at Brentford, the structure, the tactical clarity, the discipline, he's about to unleash on a squad far more dangerous. And let's say it outright, Spurs already have the attacking firepower. What they've lacked for years is a true identity. Yes, they've had their moments. A Madison free kick, a Son counterattack, a Kane worldie out of nowhere. But moments don't build dynasties. That's the shift happening now. Under Frank, those flashes of brilliance aren't random anymore. Movements are timed, lanes are opened, triggers are rehearsed. Kudus and Madison don't just drift into space. They're guided there by the system. Savinho isn't just sprinting for fun. He pins defenders, forces backlines to bend, and creates room for Udogie's inverted runs. And suddenly, midfielders who were once overworked, Bentancur and Bissouma, are playing with surgical roles instead of firefighting chaos. Then there's Solanke, not a Kane clone, not a desperate replacement. A striker who links play, presses relentlessly, and drags defenders into places they hate being. The kind of forward who makes the system work, not just the highlight reel. This is what made Brentford so hard to beat. It wasn't just tactics or talent. It was that every player knew exactly what to do. Now imagine that same clarity injected into a Spurs squad fresh off a European trophy. That's a problem. For anyone still laughing at the old Tottenham jokes, the punchline just ran out. But the real twist, there's still one player who changes everything. Someone who could turn Frank's project from dangerous into unstoppable. If you watch Kudus' first game, you probably don't need much convincing. Mohammedkudus is the real deal. Forget the hype. Just look at what he did in that single match. In his first season at West Ham, he completed over 15 dribbles in a single Premier League match against Chelsea, something almost no one not named Messi ever does. And he does it on a consistent basis. He ended the campaign with 14 goals, 6 assists, and enough broken ankles to start a physiotherapy chain. And yet, he's not just a showman. Kudus presses, he tracks back, he wins duels. He's not liability in defense like most dribblers are. He's a system weapon. And if Frank uses him the way he used Mbeumo and Wissa at Brentford, not just as attackers but as tactical tools, then Spurs might finally have what they've been missing. A difference maker who doesn't break the system, but elevates it. Where Kudus plays exactly remains to be seen. But what's certain is this: he gives Spurs unpredictability, and that's what separates contenders from entertainers. Of course, no one player changes everything, not even Kudus. But their arrival forces a bigger question. Is this the season Spurs finally get it right? Let's talk about that. Because if you zoom out and look at the options, there's a real blueprint forming. For example, Dominic Solanke might be the most important piece of this entire rebuild. Let's be clear, Solanke isn't a Kane replacement. He's not going to score 40 screamers a season or carry the team single-handedly, and that's exactly why Thomas Frank wanted him. Because what Frank needs isn't a soloist, it's a striker who plays for the system. Last season, Solanke's 19 goals were only part of the story. He linked play, pressed from the front, and created space for his teammates by dragging center-backs where they didn't want to go. Think Ivan Toney, but with more mobility and sharper decision-making in transition. And when Solanke needs a rest, you've got Mohammedkudus, capable of playing as a false nine. You've got Matisse Tell, explosive, fearless, and able to start wide or through the middle. You've got Richarlison, finally in a system that doesn't ask him to be something he's not. For the first time in years, Spurs don't have one way to score, they have options. And in a league where everyone is chasing the same top 4 spots, having multiple ways to hurt you isn't a luxury, it's a weapon. And if he applies his Brentford principles, then this Spurs backline finally has a chance to be more than just reactive. Frank's team might be the most dangerous version of Tottenham we've ever seen. But here's the real question. Is this finally it? Is this the version of Spurs that steps out of the shadows and stays there? Is this the start of a new Tottenham dynasty, or just another false one like always? Let us know in the comments. And if you haven't already, go watch our breakdown of Xabi Alonso's terrifying 2026 rebuild.